I know you have habits, but how are you thinking about your habits? On this episode, I'm going to continue to share with you 3 mind shifts when it comes to the habits in our life. This is so important. I hope you stick around for this episode on the Unfinished Leadership Podcast. Hey, welcome to the Unfinished Leadership Podcast. My name is John. So glad to be with you guys again. And what we're talking about right now is habits. Habits. A lot has been written about this. I don't know if you've noticed. I definitely have noticed. It seems to be, one of the most popular things that leaders are talking about right now. And I'm actually good with that because habits truly are what have absolutely transformed my life and my life of leadership. And so I'm super passionate about habits. A couple of years ago, I created the Stay Ready Journal that is really built on those 5 daily habits. And last episode was part 1. This is part 2 on a conversation of habits. If you want high performance, you got to examine your habits. And a lot of times in our life and in our leadership, there's a gap, right? There's a gap between where I am as a leader and where I want to be as a leader. I feel that gap. I know you feel that gap. You're like, man, how do I close that gap? Well, there's a lot of ways you can close that gap. And there's a lot of things we could talk about, but what we are talking about is habits. To really examine the habits of our life. This is one of the ways that we close the gap. And you know about habits, I know about habits. And so what I'm talking about is how we think about habits. How many times have you and I started habits and we're like, all right, I'm so fired up. I got this new journal, or I got this new app. I got this new gym membership. I got this new whatever. And a day or 2 or 3 goes by and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not really that dialed in anymore. I have experienced that so many times. I know you have experienced that. And so what really happens with habits oftentimes is we got to think about our habits differently. And so we got to have a mind shift around our habits. I gave you 3 mind shifts last episode. I'm going to give you 3 more mind shifts this episode. Last episode, I talk about that mind shift of we got to stop thinking me and we got to start thinking we. I also said we got to stop thinking big. We need to start thinking small. Also, stop thinking do, start thinking who. Who am I going to become? Those 3 mind shifts are so important. If you missed the last episode, go ahead and check that out. But let's move on to some new content. 3 more mind shifts that I find incredibly helpful for me. And this isn't just theory. I'm just telling you guys my actual life. I am unfinished. There's so much more that I know God wants to do in and through my life. And so I'm examining my habits and I'm thinking about my habits a little bit differently. 3 more mind shifts on habits. Here it is. The 4th one is this, building from last episode. The 4th one is this. A lot of times when it comes to habits, we're thinking resist when we need to think avoid. All right, so let's talk about this. This certainly pertains to food, right? You've got a new food habit, something around nutrition. Some of you've decided, all right, you're doing Whole30, or you've given up sweets for, the week, or only Monday through Friday is when, you're going to eat clean, but then on the weekend you have a little bit of a cheat time and you'll eat some sweets, something like that, okay? And when you're beginning that habit, a lot of times what you're thinking is resist. It might even be written on your mirror, resist, resist, resist. Here's what I've found, that if I'm just thinking about resist, it's just a matter of time before that is not going to work. I want us to replace resist with a different way of thinking about our habits, and that is to avoid. Now, I want you to think about this. Let's just say that you're thinking about, all right, you want to start a new habit around what you're drinking. You don't want to drink soda, for the month of September or something like that, okay? And the problem is, right now, if you were to open your fridge or your other fridge in the garage, you would open it up and you would see like it is only Diet Coke or it's only Dr. Pepper or whatever, okay? I can tell you right now, September is not going to go well. The reason is because your fridge is full of that one thing that you are trying so hard to resist. What if instead you were to think avoid? In his book, Atomic Habits, he gives an amazing example. Every month I bring to you some books, and I got three that I'll talk about today. Atomic Habits, awesome book. Read it if you haven't read it. He talked about this one story of a couple that were wanting to build a new habit in their life and in their marriage where they were watching less TV. They'd kind of gotten addicted into binge watching, whatever on Netflix. And what he talked about in the book is they continued to fail because that remote was just an arm's length reach. And they just kind of kept, habitually reaching over to that remote, right? 40% of what we do every day is a habit. It's an automaticity, they say. And so what this couple then decided to do is like, all right, we got to rethink about how we're thinking about our habits. They said, what if we then think about this differently? They went on to take the TV off the wall, went downstairs and put it into like their kind of crawl space kind of storage area. Think about this. And he writes about this in the book. He's like, so you tell me, do you think they got more momentum in their life or less? Of course, they got way more momentum in their life. They begin to think about what they're thinking about a little bit differently, right? Easier to avoid it because it wasn't on the wall. Easier to not drink it when it's not in your fridge. Easier to not eat it when you don't go to those restaurants anymore. And what I've found, especially from a fitness and nutrition standpoint, when I want momentum in my life, man, I gotta start thinking avoid. Too many times we're making it way too easy. Now, I know that you've been in these different buildings before, and I actually think it's the law that you have to have these devices in the building. Like if someone were to have a heart attack, there's this kind of glass thing. You break the glass and you get out this. I think it's an AED device. And you can literally save someone's life. And so I actually know someone that literally saved someone's life with that device. Well, you got to break the glass to get to it. And that's how I think we should be thinking about this. We need to organize our life in such a way where, man, we just got to make this easy for us to win. Why are you making it so hard? Right? You're wanting to start a new healthy habit of not doom scrolling at night, yet you keep going into your bedroom with your iPhone. You're making it way too hard. We need to think avoid. And this is something I started doing 4 years ago is I put my iPhone to bed at night. I parent my iPhone and I leave it down in the kitchen. I have a little charging area. And I've just found that, man, self-control is something I don't want to have to use a lot of. Isn't it interesting? How often you and I, when we think about self-control, we just think that we should be using it all the time. No, it should be like an AED device. Like you just shouldn't, you should organize, and we need to organize our life where we don't have to always be accessing and using self-control. Some of you are thinking resist. I want you to think avoid. It may even be time right now if you just hit pause on this, pull the truck over and really make some hard decisions. When you get home tonight, maybe you need to empty out that fridge. Maybe you need to make some hard decisions, take the TV off the wall, make that decision, stop thinking resist, start thinking avoid. The second one is this. You're thinking show out when you need to think show up. So let's talk about this. Now, my family's from the South, and so show out maybe isn't a phrase you've heard of before, but it's a phrase, it's kind of like a Southern phrase. And to show out means to be like, man, you make it happen. It's when you go 4 for 4 in that baseball game or throw 3 touchdowns in that football game, or you crush that board meeting. It was like a standing ovation in that board meeting, whatever it might be. To show out is like when you rise to the occasion. And a lot of you, that's what you're thinking. Like you're going to make it happen. When that thing comes to pass, you are going to toe the line and you are going to knock it out of the park. You're going to PR it. That's show out. Okay. I think we know what we're talking about. And a lot of times with your habits, when you're trying to fill that gap, that's how you're thinking. You're thinking show out. You're thinking that in that moment, you're going to make it happen. I want to encourage you to replace the show out with something else. And that something else is show up. It's just true that when you and I instead, we think in kind of these smaller micro habits of when I'm going to show up and be faithful every single day. It's going to be amazing what happens in my life over time. The habit of showing up. I'm convinced this is one of the best habits that you could ever develop in your life as a leader, the habit of showing up. Instead of just, making it happen from time to time, we're going to show up every single day. We're going to do the work. This book that I'm going through right now is called Discipline is Destiny. Ryan Holiday, he wrote this book, and I love it because it's really short chapters, and it's full of all kinds of inspiring, great, different little stories. And he talks about in it this number, 2,130. 2,130 is how many consecutive games Lou Gehrig played. 2,130. And when I read that chapter, listening about the life of Lou Gehrig, man, I was so inspired to develop that habit of showing up, that I got to think about my habits this way. I just got to keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. His nickname was the Iron Horse. And this is what this guy did. He decided to develop that habit of showing up. Think about this. Over 2,000 games in a row he started for the Yankees. 2,130 is an incredible thing. And when you hear that, you might be thinking that, well, I don't know, maybe he was healthy for 2,130 games. You're like, no, he was not healthy. In fact, this is so amazing. They ended up doing some like body scans and x-rays, and they found that he had 17 healed fractures in his hands alone. 17. Lou Gehrig, he showed up no matter the conditions. He showed up when he was healthy. He showed up when he was sick. He showed up when he felt great. He showed up when he had broken bones in his hands. And it's incredible what he accomplished over the course of his career simply by choosing to show up. Somebody watching this, somebody listening to this, you need to hear what I'm saying. It is amazing what can happen in your life through this habit of showing up. Show up every single day. He had this incredible streak going, and so many people are talking about, like, I don't know, how long is Lou Gehrig going to make this streak? And he writes about this story where in one game, Lou Gehrig was beamed. He was hit in the head with a fastball. I played baseball for a long time, all throughout college. And it hurts when you get hit. I've been hit in the head, but we wore helmets, not back in his day. They didn't have helmets. So he got hit by a fastball with no helmet. And the story is documented that he was totally unconscious on the ground. And they were concerned, like they didn't know if he was dead. They didn't know what was happening. Finally, after a number of minutes, he came back and they rushed him to the hospital. And the story is told where everyone was saying, like, well, the streak is over, right? He's not going to be in the starting lineup tomorrow. Like, hopefully he's even just going to be alive. Well, what's amazing is this: when that next day came, there was the Iron Horse. Yep. He's like a metronome. Like, this dude is just going to show up every single day. His head was so swollen that next day that he couldn't even wear his own hat. He had to wear Babe Ruth's hat. Man, I read that story and I just got so fired up. No matter what's coming this week, this month, this year, that you and we would think about our habits in this way. I don't know what your habits are right now. For me, my big 5 is no snooze, no booze, workout, wisdom, and wonder walk. And that wisdom, what I do every day is I open up the Word of God and I read the Bible, because I, as a leader, if I receive anything, it needs to be wisdom. And there's just so many days I don't want to do that. There's just so many days where I want to read something else, but I got to show up every single day. A mind shift on your habits is so important. You'll be amazed at what can happen if, like the Iron Horse, you continue to show up. Stop thinking show out. No one rises to the occasion. We need to instead start thinking show up. Do the work. Do the training plan. I think we're going to be amazed at what that brings about. I just got one more mind shift and then I'm going to wrap up for this episode. And I think this is a really important one. I've shared with you guys before that, I'm a pastor. I follow Jesus. That doesn't mean that you need to necessarily follow Jesus, although I would encourage you and do everything I possibly could to persuade you to follow Jesus. But this leadership podcast, it's for anyone that's leading. And so you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to follow Jesus to be part of this community and watch this podcast and share it. But this last mind shift that I want to talk about, I really want to encourage you to consider, no matter who you are, no matter what you might believe, right? I want you to consider what I'm about to say. because this mind shift, this final mind shift I want to cover, I think is such a game changer. Many of you, when you're thinking about these habits, you're thinking about willpower, when instead, I want you to think about God's power. You are where you are right now, perhaps based on your willpower. But where might you be if you were to tap into God's power? As a leader, there's so many times where I see gaps in my own life and in my own leadership. And what I oftentimes do is I just think willpower. John, make it happen. I call this Atlas leadership. You perhaps have seen or have read of, Atlas. You've seen the statue, the weight of the world on his back. So many leaders that I interact with, I coach executives, and this is true of all these executives. It's true of folks I work with here on staff. It is so easy for us as leaders when we're trying to habitualize a new, holy, healthy habit to just go into Atlas mode, where we just think this is going to happen based on my willpower. I'm not against willpower, but I am really for God's power. What might happen in your life? What might happen in your leadership if you were to tap into God's power? This is the Unfinished Leadership Podcast. Our starting point isn't ego. Our starting point is humility. And the passage that I've been spending time in right now, we're in a really exciting season and daunting season with the organization that I'm part of, Leading Mission Church. And I'm just telling you guys, so many moments, so many days right now, it's a lot. And I'm coming back to this mind shift of when I'm thinking about those habits. God, I need your power. I'm coming back to Ephesians 3:20. And Ephesians is a book in the New Testament. And 3:20, third chapter, 20th verse, it talks about immeasurably more. And I just think every one of us, we want immeasurably more. You want immeasurably more in your business. You want immeasurably more in your marriage. You want immeasurably more as a college student or as a college athlete. You want immeasurably more, no matter who you are, no matter what you lead, no matter what you're doing, you want immeasurably more. And this verse says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more. And that verse is not written to me, and it's not written to you, meaning we're not the ones that are able to do immeasurably more. No, it says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more. And it says this, according to his power that's at work within us. And so for those of you that are followers of Jesus, I'm thrilled to remind you, and I'm honored to remind you that, man, we need God's power. And for those of you that don't yet follow Jesus, maybe consider, man, what could your life look like if you began to tap into another power that is not your own? We will experience this life of discipline. We will experience you and I filling the gap, thinking about our habits differently. So important for us to say, all right, I've seen what I can do. Now I want to see what God can do. God, I want your power in my life around these habits. And I think we'll be amazed. And I believe we will experience the immeasurably more. That's all we have for this episode. I believe sharing is caring. And so, hey, share this with someone. Perhaps your colleagues at work. If you lead a team, whatever space you're in, you can access the discussion guide at our website. Just go to unfinishedleadership.com. It's free. You can download the discussion guide. Have a conversation with a colleague or with a child, with a student, with a teammate, whoever that might be. We would love for you to share this episode. But I want to remind you, just like I do at the end of every single one of these podcasts, that grace is a gift, but growth is a choice. May you and I as leaders continue to choose growth every single day. I'm really excited for next month's episode. Do not miss it. I'm going to be interviewing a really good friend of mine, a little bit longer form discussion. I hope to see you guys next month. That's all we have for this month on the Unfinished Leadership Podcast. We'll see you guys soon.